We've got some surprising revelations and brand new interviews, starting with Texas Senator Ted Cruz. It is hard to remember a freshman senator stealing the spotlight so quickly and with such force. He stopped the government in its tracks for 16 days, to cheers from Tea Party activists, jeers from Democrats, and some establishment Republicans too. But that's not slowing Cruz a bit. He's setting his sights on higher office. ABC's chief White House correspondent Jonathan Karl has his story.
When it comes to politics, you could say this has been the year of Ted Cruz.
It's government that needs more help.
Aside from the president, no one attracted more attention or more controversy. Cruz went from obscurity to leading presidential candidate in a political nanosecond. The man at the center of the government shutdown ended 2013 as a runner-up to the Pope as Times Person of the Year. Most first-year senators lay low. This one ended up on the couch next to Jay Leno.
I've been reading a lot about you lately, and they describe you as aggressive, arrogant, and abrasive. Accurate?
Well, I don't know that you can believe everything you read.
All right.
What I'm trying to do is do my job. And occasionally people don't like that.
Do you want people in Washington to like you?
You know, John, what I want to do is I want to serve 26 million Texans. I want to do my job. That's really my focus.
Do you care? I mean, does it bother you that a lot of people around here just don't like you?
Nobody should be surprised if you're trying to change Washington, that the Washington establishment pushes back.
And push back they did. Just weeks after his swearing in,
Mr. Cruz of Texas.
Cruz seemed to be off to a rough start, quickly rubbing his new colleagues in the Senate the wrong way.
Senator Cruz has gone over the line.
I'm not a sixth grader. Senator, I've been on this committee for 20 years.
Senator John McCain branded Cruz and his fellow Tea Partiers in Congress wacko birds, an insult to be sure, but Cruz didn't seem to mind.
You know, if standing for liberty, if standing for free market principles in the Constitution makes you a wacko bird, then I am a very proud wacko bird.
A supporter even made a wacko bird hat that Cruz proudly displays in his office. There was a brief moment early on when Cruz, after Obama met with Senate Republicans, talked of working with the president.
I welcome the president's coming to Capitol Hill to meet with us. I look forward to doing everything I can to work productively for us to roll up our sleeves and get the economy growing again.
That didn't last long, as Cruz laid out the goal that would turn Washington upside down, defunding Obamacare before agreeing to fund the government. At first, Republican leaders rejected the idea.
Our goal here is to cut spending. It's not to shut down the government.
But Cruz refused to go along with the Republican leadership. He gave an all-day, all-night speech, the second longest in the history of the Senate.
I intend to speak in support of defunding Obamacare until I am no longer able to stand. This grand experiment 3.5 years ago is quite simply not working.
He went on for more than 21 hours without sitting or even taking a bathroom break, filling time in some creative ways.
Mike Lee, I am your father. Jay said redneck rule number 1. Most things can be fixed with duct tape and extension cords. That's actually very true. I do not like them, Sam I am. I do not like green eggs and ham.
The speech made Cruz a national figure, a rallying point for those who agreed with him and those who didn't, giving plenty of material for late-night comedians.
In the land of D.C., in the Senate of Snooze, lived the showboatiest blab whose name was Ted Cruz.
Cruz found his most receptive audience among House conservatives, meeting secretly one night in the middle of the government shutdown with Tea Partiers in a Mexican restaurant on Capitol Hill called Tortilla Coast.
You had a famous meeting right here in this restaurant. What was that like, meeting with those House Republicans? They, in a way, were looking to you as a leader.
We had lots of meetings throughout the year and throughout the shutdown as well. And nobody should be surprised that members of Congress are talking to each other. It doesn't happen nearly enough.
But it's rare to see a senator have the kind of influence that you had, especially a freshman senator, a first-year senator, over the House.
Well, with respect, I actually don't think it was a case of my having influence at all. I think it's a case of the American people having influence.
Right, but this was a strategy that you were putting forth, and they jumped on board.
Well, no. This is something that a lot of people came forward and agreed with. And at the end of the day, the conservatives who met here at Tortilla Coast, who met repeatedly and continue to have conversations, what we were trying to do is listen to the American people, listen to those over 2 million people who are saying, this thing ain't working.
The House Republicans went along with the Cruz strategy, and the government shut down for 16 days, a move widely seen as a political disaster for Republicans that accomplished nothing. But the day Republicans caved and Congress voted to reopen the government, Cruz declared victory.
We saw the House of Representatives take a courageous stand, listening to the American people. That was a remarkable victory.
As the year draws to a close, Republican leaders have made it clear they think the strategy pushed by Cruz and outside conservative groups was a total failure.
Frankly, I just think that they've lost all credibility. You know, when they pushed us into this fight to defund Obamacare and to shut down the government. If you'll recall, one of these groups stood up and said, well, we never really thought it would work. Are you kidding me?
But the year also ended with Ted Cruz as the most high-profile Tea Party conservative in Congress. Again at Tortilla Coast, Cruz reflected on all that.
When you think about the tradition of first-year senators, they tend to be seen but not heard. You've had, you said, a whirlwind for a first year as a U.S. senator. Does that surprise you? I mean, you're on Time Magazine's list of the runner-ups to the Pope for Person of the Year.
That was a very strange thing. This is a city where it's all politics all the time. And I'm trying to do my best not to pay attention to the politics, to focus on fixing the problems. I know that's hard to believe, but because no one in this town does that. This is a time for people to step up and do the right thing, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Okay, you've had a couple of months to think about this whole government shutdown strategy. Now that it's over, in hindsight, are you prepared to say that it was a mistake, it wasn't the right tactic?
I think it was absolutely a mistake for President Obama and Harry Reid to force a government shutdown.
Now, you know, even John Boehner has said this was a Republican shutdown.
Look, I can't help what other people say, and John, I understand that in the media, every day the media reported the Republicans shut the government down.
But come on, I mean, we're a couple months away from this. The only reason why this happened is because you insisted, Republicans insisted, that Obamacare be defunded as a condition of funding the government. If you took away that insistence, there would be no shutdown.
You know,
I mean, really.
You've got conservatives who stood strong and said, let's stop the train wreck that is Obamacare. And you've got Democrats in the middle of the shutdown. President Obama called every Senate Republican to the White House, sat us in a room and said, I called you here to tell you we're not going to negotiate, we're not going to compromise on anything. Repeatedly, Republicans were compromising, trying to find a middle ground. And repeatedly, Democrats said, no compromise, shut it down.
One of the odder signs of Cruz's new celebrity is the new coloring book about him.
There is a Ted Cruz coloring book. This is the #1 selling coloring book on Amazon.
John, if ever there were a sign that the world is a crazy place, that is it. I didn't know about it.
You obviously had no idea until it came out. I don't want to take a coloring book all that seriously, but it does say in this coloring book that your filibuster was so important because millions of citizens believe Obamacare is worse than any war, and that more people will die as a result of illness because of Obamacare than in all of the wars since World War II.
Now, let me ask you, John, just for clarification, is this the first time anyone has ever been on your show cross-examined from a coloring book?
It is the first time I've ever questioned a political figure over a coloring book. So,
well,
but Obamacare is not worse than war.
No, of course not.
One more thing, when it comes to the year that was, feathers ruffled, the shutdown, the late-night jokes, Cruz says he has no big regrets.